As the devastating news of Tokido and Genya deaths reaches Tanjiro, he breaks into tears, but there's no time to grieve. He reminds himself that everyone has been pushing forward, bearing the weight of loss. He must too. Recalling a letter from Senjuro Rengoku, Tanjiro reflects on the mysterious 13th form of the Hinokami Kagura, a technique even beyond the 12 he already knows. Determined, he rushes forward beside Giyu, resolved to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji at all costs. Elsewhere, Kiryu Ubuyashiki watches with dread. The Demon Slayer Corps won't reach Muzan in time, and Tamayo can't hold him back forever. He orders all troops to hold their ground. Only the Hashira should engage the Demon King. Meanwhile, the first squad of Demon Slayers arrives at Muzan's location. Suspended over a steep abyss in the Infinity Castle, Muzan's cocooned body is held aloft by grotesque strands of flesh. Tamayo is there with him. Some Slayers suggest cutting the growths to drop the capsule. One insists they should obey orders and wait, but before anything can be done, Muzan explodes from the cocoon. In an instant, he massacres the entire squad. Kiryu's warnings come too late. Muzan moves with inhuman speed, and even the crow delivering orders is sliced apart mid-flight. Now fully awakened, Muzan gloats. After centuries, the taste of human flesh is exquisite once again. He thanks Kagaya Ubuyashiki for preparing such a feast, and muses that if the new Ubuyashiki bows to him, perhaps he'll spare them and make them a demon. He raises Tamayo's severed head, the last echo of defiance still clinging to her face. Kiryu orders the second squad to retreat before more lives are lost. But Muzan mocks Tamayo's medicine, claiming it failed. Tamayo, undeterred even in death, says today will be the day Muzan is dragged to hell. Muzan coldly crushes her skull in his hand. At that moment, Yushiro, far away, senses her death. In rage and grief, he collapses, digging his fingers into the ground. The second squad doesn't stand a chance either. Muzan wipes them out with a single attack. Kiryu asks for Giyu's location, but it's clear. No normal slayers can stand against this monster. Muzan declares coldly, "Not one of you was useful." Tonight, the Demon Slayer Corps comes to an end. Kiryu Ubuyashiki is overwhelmed with grief and guilt after the massacre of Demon Slayers by the reawakened Muzan Kibutsuji. Feeling he has failed both his predecessors and the Corps, he loses focus, fearing that their centuries of sacrifice may have been in vain. But suddenly, Queen Ubuyashiki slaps him, snapping him out of his spiral. Shocked, their sister Kanata looks on as Queen urges Kiryu to stay strong and give his next orders. The fight isn't over yet. Remembering the pressure his father and forefathers endured, Kiryu regains his composure. He orders for reinforcements to converge on Muzan's position, and for all efforts to be focused on eliminating Muzan completely. As Kanata returns to her seat, Kiryu thanks his sisters, and the three tearfully support one another. A crow flies out to the battlefield, announcing Muzan's revival, and spreading Kiryu's order for all Hashira to gather at once. Mitsuri Kanroji is stunned. Obanai Iguro, frustrated, curses that they're still locked in battle with Nakimi, while the others had already paid a heavy price to defeat the upper ranks. Mitsuri questions whether they should leave Nakimi and regroup, but just then she is suddenly pulled away by her cloak. Nakimi's biwa resounds again, manipulating the Infinity Castle. Elsewhere, Muzan, still standing among the bodies of the slain Demon Slayers, is teleported to a new room, where Tanjiro Kamado and Giyu Tomioka arrive alongside him. Tanjiro locks eyes with the demon who destroyed his life, his mind surging with memories of his family's murder, Nezuko's suffering, and the friends he's lost. Rage builds inside him, but Giyu tells him to remain calm. Muzan speaks with venom. He mocks the Demon Slayers for their persistence and desire for vengeance. He compares himself to a natural disaster, asking why no one swears revenge on earthquakes or storms. To him, they should simply move on, earn their wages, and be grateful they didn't die. Tanjiro, disturbed, asks what he means, but Muzan continues, calling Demon Slayers deviants, blaming them for perpetuating this war. He says he's the one who wants it all to end. But Tanjiro steps forward, telling Muzan that he is a being that must not be allowed to exist. Tanjiro Kamado stands face to face with Muzan Kibutsuji, overwhelmed with a rage he's never felt before. Knowing Muzan won't fall by decapitation alone, Tanjiro resolves to stall for time and gather any insight that might help defeat him. Muzan suddenly attacks, hurling his sharp whip-like tubes at Tanjiro and Giyu Tomioka. Giyu narrowly blocks using water breathing, 11th form. Dead calm, realizing Muzan's new limbs are as fast as they are deadly. Tanjiro tries to get close but is slashed across the eye. Giyu pulls him back, warning that Muzan is on another level entirely. Beheading won't work, and there's no exit from the room with Muzan guarding the door. Muzan, taunting them, claims only 3 Hashira remain, revealing that Obanai and Mitsuri have been killed by Nakime. Tanjiro, struggling with his blind spot, tries using his nose but can't track Muzan's movements. He crashes into a wall and nearly gets hit again before Giyu protects him. Just then, Mitsuri Kanroji smashes through the wall, revealing she's alive. She launches an attack, love breathing, 6th form, but Muzan isn't phased. Obanai Iguro appears, grabs Tanjiro, and tells him to fall back. Tanjiro is relieved they survived, but Obanai scolds him to focus on staying alive. Muzan is confused. How are they alive? He calls for Nakime, but Yushiro reveals himself. With a seal on Nakime's face and his hands fused to her temples, Yushiro was controlling her, feeding false visions to Muzan. As the Infinity Castle quakes, Yushiro declares that for Tamayo's death, he'll end Muzan once and for all. The Hashira engage Muzan Kibutsuji in a fierce battle, but the terrain constantly shifts within the Infinity Castle, disorienting everyone. Mitsuri Kanroji begins to feel dizzy as the battlefield twists around her. She grows anxious, wishing for Gyome Himejima to arrive soon, and realizes that Tanjiro and Giyu may be in even greater danger than they knew. In a flashback, Yushiro explains his plan. If Mitsuri wants to be useful, she must help him get close enough to Nakime to take control of her mind. By feeding her a false vision to pass on to Muzan, one where the Hashira are all dead, they would gain the element of surprise and attack Muzan while he's off guard. Mitsuri eagerly agrees, marveling at Yushiro's ability. Back in the present, Muzan begins to suspect something is wrong. As the scenery changes again, he deduces that Yushiro is controlling Nakime and begins to push back, infecting Yushiro's hand with his cells, threatening to corrupt him. A nearby demonslayer offers to let Yushiro devour him to gain strength, but Yushiro refuses. Muzan is momentarily distracted when Giyu and Obanai charge in with water breathing, 4th form, and serpent breathing, 1st form. Yushiro uses the distraction to reassert control over Nakime and changes the battlefield again, causing everyone, including Muzan, to plummet. During the fall, Muzan clenches his fist, crushing Nakime's skull, severing her control. Yushiro immediately senses the castle's collapse and works to teleport the demon slayers to safety. The floor reappears just in time as the battle resumes mid-chaos. Tanjiro is slashed by one of Muzan's whip-like attacks, his right shoulder bleeding. Obanai senses the end is near. If the castle collapses completely, only Muzan would survive. Mitsuri is nearly struck by Muzan's attack, but Obanai pushes her away, saving her with only a piece of her cloak being sliced. At that moment, Tanjiro hurls his sword, flinging a broken blade into Muzan's head. The blow stuns the demon and enrages him further. Finally, the Infinity Castle erupts out of the ground, exploding into the open world, flinging everyone to the surface. The real battle under the rising sun has officially begun. Tanjiro Kamado regains consciousness under the night sky, finally back on the surface thanks to Yushiro's efforts. As he takes in the sight of the city around them, panic sets in. This was a populated area. At the Ubuyashiki mansion, Kiria worries as well, realizing the demon slayers were flung much farther than anticipated. When he asks Kanata how long until dawn, she tells him they have an hour and a half left. Kiria's face tightens with anxiety, far more time than they can afford to give Muzan. A crow relays the message across the battlefield, alerting everyone of the time until sunrise. Tanjiro, hearing this, checks the area and is relieved to see the Hashira around him are alive. With determination, he sets off to track Muzan Kibutsuji's scent. Suddenly, Muzan bursts through rubble, launching debris in every direction. With a sinister grin, he taunts the demon slayers, challenging them to keep him in place until dawn, if they even can. He lashes out with a barrage of whip-like attacks, but the Hashira dodge and respond with their techniques. Obanai uses serpent breathing, 3rd form. Coil choke. Mitsuri counters with love breathing. 2nd form, love pangs. Giyu strikes with water breathing. 8th form, waterfall basin. Obanai seemingly lands a slash across Muzan's neck. But to his horror, the wound heals instantly, revealing Muzan's body is regenerating faster than they can damage it. As Muzan retaliates, a group of junior demon slayers rushes in to shield the Hashira, pushing them out of harm's way. Though no match for Muzan, they sacrifice themselves willingly to buy time. Muzan coldly obliterates them, killing scores of young fighters, horrifying the watching Hashira. Tanjiro attempts to rejoin the battle but collapses, coughing up blood, unable to move. He writhes in pain as a massive tumor-like growth appears on the right side of his face. Muzan turns his attention to him and explains his cruel technique. He reveals that his attacks are laced with high concentrations of his blood, acting as a deadly poison that tears apart cells. Muzan assures them Tanjiro will not turn into a demon because the blood is too concentrated. It will kill him instead. As Tanjiro chokes and claws at his throat, Muzan confidently declares the boy already dead. But he isn't, still fueled by plot armor. Sakonji Urokodaki is stunned when Nezuko suddenly awakens. Sensing her distress, he asks what's wrong, but she bolts outside. Tengen Uzui and Shinjuro Rengoku watch in disbelief as she runs, with Sakonji chasing after her. Uzui yells asking where she's going, while Shinjuro informs Kiriya Ubuyashiki, asking for orders. Kiriya, alarmed, fears Muzan may be influencing her, but the presence of his father's spirit calms him. He feels a hand on his shoulder and hears a voice reassuring him to let Nezuko go. Holding back tears, Kiriya orders them not to follow her, trusting his father's words, even though they fear losing her to the demons. Nezuko quickly outruns Sakonji and, guided by a vision of her father, Tanjiro, leaps off a cliff and lands safely. As she continues forward, Sakonji realizes that Tamayo's medicine hasn't reversed her demon form. Back on the battlefield, Tanjiro remains unconscious, a tumor spreading across his face. Giyu, Obanai, and Mitsuri clash with Muzan, who unleashes relentless attacks. He acknowledges their tenacity, crediting the power of their demon slayer marks. Mitsuri, already wounded, cries out as her injury worsens, unable to move. Muzan's whip is suddenly severed. Gyomei has arrived. Mitsuri is relieved. Muzan recognizes him as Kokushibo's killer. Before he can respond, Sanemi strikes from behind, slicing him cleanly and dousing him in oil. With a fiery match, he sets Muzan ablaze. Roaring, Muzan accuses Sanemi of trickery. The Wind Hashira calls it fitting for a demon like him and vows to crush him. Nearby, Murata emerges from the rubble. Giyu spots him and urgently tells him to take Tanjiro to safety. Murata, touched that Giyu remembers him from their final selection, carries Tanjiro away. Inside Tanjiro's mind, a dream begins. He's at home chopping firewood, but something is wrong. He realizes with quiet horror he can't smell anything. After losing consciousness, Tanjiro finds himself in a place resembling his own home. Confused, he notices a man under a tree bowing politely. It's Yoriichi Tsugikuni, the originator of sun-breathing. Meanwhile, in reality, Murata desperately tries to revive Tanjiro, finding no pulse or breath. Another demon slayer urges him to help dig out Yushiro, hoping the demon doctor can save Tanjiro. Back in the vision, Yoriichi begins speaking to someone he believes is Sumiyoshi Kamado. Tanjiro quickly realizes he's reliving a memory passed down from his ancestor and cannot interfere. Yoriichi reflects on his past, how his religious mother prayed for peace, how his kind brother Michikatsu cared for him despite their father's harshness, and how he was given a handmade flute. After their mother's death, Yoriichi ran away to avoid becoming a priest, wanting Michikatsu to inherit instead. He ran endlessly and eventually met Yuta, a girl orphaned by plague. He invited her to live with him, and over the years, they married. Yuta helped him realize how different he was, even saying he could see into living creatures. 10 years later, with Yuta pregnant, Yoriichi left to fetch a midwife. Delayed by helping an old man see his wounded son, he returned too late. A demon had killed Yuta and their unborn child. Grief-stricken, he held their bodies for 10 days until a demon slayer found him. Yoriichi only wished for a simple life with his family, but in sorrow he acknowledged, demons exist in this beautiful world. He joined the demon slayers and taught others the breathing styles. The strongest became the first Hashira, wielding flame, water, wind, thunder, and stone. Even Michikatsu joined after losing comrades. Eventually, Yoriichi confronted Muzan Kibutsuji and in that moment knew his very purpose: to destroy Muzan. Yorichi faces Muzan Kibutsuji, instantly sensing his killing intent, wild and overwhelming like a volcanic eruption. Muzan declares he's tired of swordsmen using breathing techniques in attacks. Yorichi dodges but realizes even one scratch could mean death. Through the transparent world, Yorichi sees Muzan's secret, 7 hearts and 5 brains, shifting throughout his body. Calmly, he chains together every sun-breathing form into one flawless strike. Tanjiro, watching through Sumiyoshi's memory, realizes this is the 13th form. Muzan is stunned. He can't regenerate. Holding his own severed head, he's helpless. Yorichi pauses, asking, "What is the value of a life to you?" Muzan only glares. Yorichi then notices the girl traveling with Muzan, Tamayo. Her eyes aren't fearful, they're hopeful. As Yorichi steps forward to finish the job, Muzan's body explodes into 1,800 pieces. Yorichi cuts down 1,500, but some escape. Tamayo collapses, cursing Muzan for surviving. She's surprised she lived after saying his name. Yorichi approaches and she tells him Muzan is the demon progenitor and likely won't show himself again. She agrees to help defeat him and gives her name, Tamayo. Tanjiro is stunned. Later, Yorichi learns from fellow slayers that his brother Michikatsu has become a demon. At headquarters, Yorichi is blamed for failing to kill Muzan, letting Tamayo go, and for Michikatsu's betrayal. He's ordered to commit seppuku, but the new Ubuyashiki head refuses. As his story ends, Yorichi tells Sumiyoshi that despite being born to destroy Muzan, he failed, and many lives will be lost because of it. Sumiyoshi can't find the words, but his daughter, Sumire, walks over and tugs Yorichi's clothes, saying, "Hug!" Yorichi silently lifts her into the air. As the fight against Muzan intensifies, Gyome notes something troubling. Muzan is growing faster. So fast, in fact, that Mitsuri can only dodge his attacks on sheer instinct and luck. She attempts to strike, but is caught off guard when one of Muzan's arms grabs her. A brutal follow-up tears into her right cheek and injures her shoulder. Obanai leaps in, rescuing her just in time. With Sanemi, Giyu, and Gyome holding Muzan back, Obanai carries her to safety and hands her off to another demon slayer, ordering him to find Yushiro for treatment. The slayer agrees, but Mitsuri protests. She wants to keep fighting. Obanai refuses and begins to run off. As he leaves, she begs him not to die. While sprinting back into battle, Obanai reflects on the mountain of death caused by demons. For a moment, he wishes he had met Mitsuri under better circumstances, but then corrects himself. If it means ending Muzan, he's willing to die and wash away the filthy bloodline he was born into. As he runs, his face wrappings fall away, revealing deep scars running across the sides of his mouth. Obanai recalls his horrific childhood. Born into a greedy clan that lived off stolen wealth, he was the first male child in 370 years, and was locked in a cage. A serpent-bodied demon lived with the clan, feasting on newborns in exchange for their protection. She spared Obanai only because of his rare eyes, hoping he'd grow more satisfying to eat. She even ordered the women of the clan to slice his mouth like hers. Eventually, Obanai used a stolen hairpin to slowly cut through his wooden cage. His companion Kabura Maru, the snake, stayed with him through it all. During their escape, the demon found and slaughtered the rest of the clan. Just as she closed in on Obanai, Shinjuro Rengoku, then the flame Hashira arrived and beheaded her, saving both him and his female cousin, though she later cursed him for causing the clan's downfall. Becoming a demon slayer gave Obanai a purpose, a way to rise above his blood-stained past, even if the weight of his family's sins still clung to him. Now, as the battle rages, he quietly vows he wants to die destroying Muzan to purify himself. And if fate allows, he wishes to meet Mitsuri again in a world without demons, reborn as normal humans. If that happens, he promises he'll finally tell her he loves her. As Nezuko races toward the battlefield, a group of Kakushi work nearby to evacuate civilians, pretending to be part of a police rescue effort. Another Kakushi team clears the rubble left behind by Muzan's destruction. Amid the debris, they find a trapped cat, Tamayo's familiar still wearing a bag. Freed, the cat bolts toward the battle. Meanwhile, Obanai and Sanemi fight Muzan at close range. Obanai severs one of Muzan's arms and kicks it away mid-slice, preventing quick regeneration. Muzan notes the tactic but brushes it off, claiming the time lost is insignificant. Muzan's whip lashes at Obanai, who narrowly avoids the mouths on its ends. Every second matters now, and he vows not to collapse until a second after sunrise. Every moment won by fallen comrades must count. Nearby, Giyu weakens from accumulated venom. Muzan knocks his sword away, but Obanai and Gyomei intercept, slicing the whip. Sanemi retrieves Giyu's sword and throws it back to him, yelling for him to stay focused or die. Encouraged, Giyu recovers and unleashes water-breathing, third form flowing dance, determined to keep fighting. Though impressed by the Hashira's resilience, Muzan feels confident. His poison will kill them all before dawn. Just as their bodies start to falter, Tamayo's cat appears and launches its payload, vials of antidote. The slayers quickly inject themselves. Muzan, in fury, slashes the cat to pieces. Almost immediately, Sanemi feels the poison's tumors dissolve. Gyomei too notices the pain and pulse calming. They're still cautious, assuming the effect may be temporary, but it gives them renewed strength. Muzan realizes Tamayo's work persists even in death, and curses her. In a rage, Muzan unleashes a devastating barrage, tearing massive craters into the battlefield. The Hashira narrowly dodge, regrouping. Obanai, frustrated by his limited impact, thinks back to his weakest days. He once couldn't even lift more than chopsticks. But he recalls Muchiro turning his sword red during his fight with Kokushibo. At first, Obanai thought the color change came from heat, but he now understands. It was from sheer grip strength and determination. Gritting his teeth, he channels every ounce of will into his grip, and his blade begins to glow bright red. Obanai Iguro had pushed himself too far. After forcing his blade to glow bright red, he began to lose consciousness, his vision speckled with stars. He realized too late that he had focused so hard on gripping his sword that he'd nearly passed out from lack of oxygen. A sharp shout from Sanemi brings him back. Muzan is attacking. Obanai knows if even one of them falls, the pressure on the others will only worsen. Despite his body going numb, everything but the hand on his sword, he wills himself to keep fighting, determined to carry on in Mitsuri's place. Giyu moves to intercept Muzan, but he's too slow. Then, Obanai reappears in midair, dodging Muzan's strike with shocking ease. Muzan lashes out again, only for his right arm and whips to be severed by an unseen force. The cut feels unnatural. It's not from any blade Muzan recognizes. As Muzan regrows the limb with a delay, he's interrupted again. His left arm gets sliced off just as suddenly. These strikes aren't from any of the Hashira he's battling. Muzan quickly deduces a new enemy is hiding nearby, likely made invisible by some spell. Even so, he listens for displaced air and slices through the dust. His guess is dead on. 3 invisible figures are revealed as their seals are slashed away: Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Kanao. Muzan had sensed them perfectly. Gyomei is relieved to see them alive. Inosuke proudly shouts that he has plenty of extra seals, but Muzan isn't impressed. He lashes out, yet his own attack is cut short by Obanai, who slices off both of his arms again. Sanemi, watching Muzan struggle to regenerate against bright red blades, gains a flicker of hope. Kanao and Zenitsu immediately launch an assault. Kanao uses flower breathing, 4th form, Crimson Hanagoromo, while Zenitsu blasts forward with thunder breathing, 1st form, thunderclap, and flash. Muzan scoffs, calling them pathetic insects, until Obanai strikes again with serpent breathing, 3rd form, coil choke. With their numbers growing and the red blades weakening Muzan's regeneration, the battle shifts. Gyomei slams his weapons together, both turn bright red, and his neck swing shatters Muzan's entire left shoulder, exposing his spine. Muzan stumbles. Sanemi yells for Giyu to get ready, then strikes Giyu's blade with his own, igniting both weapons in brilliant red. Just then, a crow soars overhead, announcing the countdown. 1 hour and 3 minutes until dawn. Sanemi doesn't flinch. "No problem," he declares. "We'll slice him into pieces by then." Yushiro urgently injects Tanjiro with multiple doses of Tamayo's antidote, hoping to flush out Muzan's poison. Some demon slayers question the risk, but Yushiro insists it's been too long since Tanjiro was infected. They try to pull his katana from his hand, but his grip won't loosen. Yushiro takes it as a sign. Tanjiro's will to fight is still alive. Moments later, a slayer holding Tanjiro's head shouts, "His pulse is back!" Tanjiro stirs faintly. Someone mutters that Muzan might escape, and suddenly Tanjiro's grip tightens. His sword creaks. Then, with a jolt, he regains consciousness. On the battlefield, a Kikuchi watches from hiding, daring to believe dawn might come in time. Gyome slashes through half of Muzan's torso, while Sanemi grabs an invisibility seal and sticks it to his forehead. He instantly sees Kanao, Zenitsu, and Inosuke, the next wave now in the fight. Inosuke yells that he wants a red blade too, and Sanemi unleashes wind breathing, 7th form, at Muzan. With new support, Gyome focuses and peers into the transparent world, spotting multiple hearts and brains inside Muzan's body, shifting, moving. Decapitation alone won't kill him. He calls to the others, urging them to look deeper. Obanai manages it briefly, stunned by what he sees. But before anything else, Muzan attacks, destroying the battlefield in an instant. The Kikuchi watches in horror. Gyome crashes nearby, leg gone. Sanemi is flung into a building. Obanai, Zenitsu, and Inosuke lie unconscious. Giyu's sword arm is severed. Kanao drops to her knees, seal gone, sword broken, as Muzan looms over her. She tries to move, but her limbs won't respond. Suddenly, a fiery slash tears through Muzan's arm. Tanjiro appears, unleashing Hinokami Kagura, beneficent radiance, the severed limb sizzling and failing to regenerate. He gently hands Kanao to the Kikuchi, apologizing for arriving late. Muzan mocks him, saying he looks barely human, but as he stares at the boy, he remembers Yoriichi, and the fear returns. Tanjiro stares him down. "Let's finish this," he says. Tanjiro recalls how everything shifted after witnessing the original Hinokami Kagura. Watching Yoriichi Tsugikuni's sun-breathing firsthand through Sumiyoshi's memories, he noticed the difference. Every motion, breath, and step, refined beyond anything he'd practiced. Yoriichi, quiet and humble, demonstrated each form at Suyako Kamado's request, and Sumiyoshi committed them to memory, in awe of their grace. When Yoriichi left, he gifted Sumiyoshi his Hanafuda earrings. Realizing they might never meet again, Sumiyoshi called out, vowing to carry on his legacy and ensure his life wouldn't be in vain. Touched, Yoriichi turned back and smiled, his burden lightened by those heartfelt words. Back in the present, Tanjiro thanks Yoriichi for everything, for sparing Tamayo, for the breathing forms, and for trusting his family with the technique. Reflecting on the similarities between the 1st and 12th forms, he finally understands. The 13th form isn't new, it's all 12 performed in a loop, again and again, to strike at Muzan's shifting hearts and brains until dawn. Even knowing how strong Yoriichi was and that he couldn't finish Muzan, Tanjiro steels himself. He may not have the same talent, but he resolves to give his all. He breathes, grips his blade, and charges at Muzan. Startled, Muzan sees Yoriichi and Tanjiro and lashes out in rage. The ground splits as Muzan attacks furiously, landing a blow that sends Tanjiro flying. But Tanjiro quickly recovers. He notes Muzan's monstrous form, 9 whips from his back and faster ones from his legs. Muzan isn't bound by human anatomy. Tanjiro begins combining the sun-breathing forms, dance, raging sun, fire wheel, but gets interrupted mid-flow. Still, he doesn't falter. He knows this is how they're meant to be used. He'll keep connecting the forms. He'll finish what Yoriichi started. Muzan Kibutsuji notes that living beings often access hidden strength when near death, and now watches Tanjiro Kamado do the same, attempting to chain all 12 sun-breathing forms. Though Tanjiro has turned his blade bright red like the Hashira before him, Muzan is unfazed, believing his attacks pale in comparison to Yoriichi Tsugikuni's. As Tanjiro connects Dragon Sun Halo Head Dance and Fire Wheel, managing to link 6 forms, he struggles with the challenge of Muzan's constantly shifting organs and relentless attacks. Fatigue creeps in, yet he pushes forward, focusing on each second while chaining Fake Rainbow with Burning Bones, Summer Sun. Muzan senses Tanjiro's weakening strikes and assumes he will soon lose the red blade. With a brutal strike, Muzan knocks Tanjiro back, who coughs blood but stands again, determined to continue. Muzan begins to question his own slowing speed, suspecting Tamayo's drug had additional effects. Searching inside himself, Muzan finds Tamayo's consciousness as a severed head and demands answers. She cryptically refuses, saying his multiple brains should solve it. Enraged, he crushes her image, then combs through her memories, uncovering one where she and Shinobu Kocho developed a 2-part poison, one to revert demons to humans and the second to rapidly age them. 50 years per minute. Realizing the truth, Muzan calculates the toll. 3 hours of aging effect at 50 years per minute, a total of 9,000 years. The colorless state of his hair should have tipped him off earlier. Just then, a crow announces 59 minutes till dawn. Meanwhile, Tanjiro continues, firing off solar heat haze, beneficent radiance, clear blue sky, fire wheel, raging sun, and flame dance. Muzan lunges, but Tanjiro dodges with fake rainbow and counters with dance, setting sun transformation, burning bones, dragon sun halo, head dance, and sunflower thrust. With all 12 forms connected, Tanjiro resolves to keep repeating them faster and more precisely until sunrise. Yushiro and a pair of demon slayers approach Chachamaru's mangled body. Calmly, Yushiro reattaches the cat's severed head and cradles it. Shocked, the slayers ask if the cat is a demon, and Yushiro confirms it, saying he turned it before the battle began. Snapping at them to stop gawking, he orders them to treat the injured using Tamayo's anti-Muzan serum. They rush off and treat Inosuke, Kanao, and Zenitsu. Yushiro then turns his attention to Gyomei and, upon assessing his condition, notes the blood loss and severed leg, realizing the stone Hashira likely won't be able to fight again. With over 50 minutes till dawn, he silently pleads to Tamayo to guide and protect Tanjiro, knowing he can't hold out alone. Meanwhile, Tanjiro continues to execute the sun-breathing forms, trying to strike Muzan's shifting hearts and brains. But the oxygen strain overwhelms him. He nearly blacks out. Desperate, he tries to use his sense of smell instead, but falters and nearly dies until Obanai Iguro saves him just in time, skillfully dodging Muzan's furious attacks with Kaburamaru's help. Tanjiro's relief turns to horror when he sees Obanai's face, slashed and blinded. But the serpent Hashira insists it wasn't from rescuing him, but from an earlier blow during Muzan's rampage. He tells Tanjiro not to worry. His weakened vision doesn't matter because Kaburamaru guides him. Obanai releases Tanjiro and leaps into solo combat with Muzan. As the demon attacks in a frenzy, Tanjiro regains his footing and uses sun-breathing to force Muzan to divide his focus. Muzan is furious, recognizing Kaburamaru's role in helping Obanai avoid his blows. Despite both being gravely wounded, Tanjiro and Obanai continue their synchronized assault. Muzan struggles more than he expected, confirming Tamayo's aging drug is taking a heavy toll. Then, Tanjiro notices something startling. Old scars re-emerging on Muzan's body, the very same wounds inflicted by Yorichi Sugikuni. These scars, never healed, had damaged Muzan at the cellular level. Realizing these are his weak spots, Tanjiro believes Yorichi is still guiding them. Muzan Kibutsuji recalls his first encounter with Yorichi Sugikuni, initially mistaking him for a frail man, calm, emotionless, and lacking any thirst for battle. Yet to his shock, Yorichi not only decapitated him but dealt wounds so deep that Muzan's body still aches at the cellular level, as though scorched by sunlight. It was then Muzan realized Yorichi was the true monster, not him. Back in the present, Tanjiro Kamado pushes forward, determined to exploit Muzan's weakening condition and the reappearing scars across his body. Though he's lost the transparent world due to oxygen deprivation, he now understands that the moving scars indicate the locations of Muzan's hearts and brains, his critical organs. Wanting to help Obanai Iguro fight more effectively despite his blindness, Tanjiro decides to hand him one of Yushiro's seals. Just then, a crow announces that only 40 minutes remain until sunrise. Panicked, Muzan suddenly bolts, abandoning the fight to seek shelter from the approaching daylight. Tanjiro shouts in warning as the demon tramples over fallen demon slayer corpses in his path. Infuriated, Tanjiro hurls the swords of the slain slayers at Muzan, knowing piercing wounds are far more damaging to him in this state. Muzan, wary, slashes them all away, but Obanai drops from above, stabbing Muzan in the chest. He escapes just before Muzan's tendrils strike, and Tanjiro cuts at the whips using sun-breathing to cover him. While defending, Tanjiro tosses Yushiro's seal aside, but Kaburamaru catches it mid-air and delivers it to Obanai, who quickly equips it. Now able to see clearly, Obanai lands more precise attacks, pushing Muzan further into desperation. The demon starts to falter, his breaths growing ragged. Elsewhere, Nezuko Kamado finally reaches the edge of the town, one eye now appearing human again as the final confrontation looms closer. Nezuko Kamado stumbles closer to the battlefield, panting heavily. Her mind flashes back to Muzan's slaughter of her family. Back then, he'd tried to create a sun-resistant demon by injecting a small amount of his blood into the Kamados, but they all seemed to die. Unaware, Nezuko survived. More memories flood her thoughts. Giyu Tomioka sparing her, Sakonji Urokodaki's care, Tamayo and Yushiro's support, Zenitsu offering her flowers and Inosuke giving her acorns. She falls to the ground, exhausted. Still, her memories continue: Sanemi's test during the Hashira meeting, Kagaya's gentle presence, and scenes from the Butterfly Mansion and past battles with Kyojuro, Uzui, Genya, and Muichiro. Gradually, Nezuko's body begins to change. Her hand transforms back to human. With a final surge of will, recalling Tanjiro's promise to save her, she forces herself to her feet and fully returns to her human form. She declares, "I am Nezuko Kamado. A demon killed my family." Elsewhere, Muzan struggles. Frustrated that Tanjiro still lives and sensing the Hashira recovering, he lashes out mentally at the Demonslayer Corps, calling them relentless like a string of beads. A crow cries out. 35 minutes until dawn. Panicked, Muzan tries to split his body into pieces, a technique he used to escape Yorichi. Tanjiro realizes this and urgently warns Obanai, but Muzan can't. His body won't cooperate. Suddenly, he coughs up blood. Then, Tamayo's voice echoes in his head. There was a fourth component to her drug. After becoming more human, aging rapidly, and slowing regeneration, the final effect has begun: complete cellular breakdown. With a cold, triumphant smile, Tamayo tells him, "The death you feared so much is finally upon you." Within Muzan Kibutsuji's mind, Tamayo's lingering presence mocks him, saying they don't need to surpass him in strength, only in resolve. She tells him that just as he clings to life, those he's harmed will do anything to see him dead. Muzan, furious, admits that while red blades alone wouldn't normally threaten him, Tamayo's drug has made them devastating. Unlike Doma's case, this compound is too complex to analyze quickly. Suddenly, Muzan seizes up and freezes, staring skyward. Tanjiro and Obanai believe he's finally succumbing and move in, but Muzan erupts with a massive shockwave and lightning blast. Gigantic jaws burst from his torso, leveling the area. The impact disables Tanjiro and Obanai, while Tanjiro suffers seizures. Elsewhere, the Ubuyashiki siblings also suffer shock from the crow link being severed. Tengen and Shinjuro race to protect them. Bleeding but determined, Kiriya urges the others on. Just 25 minutes till dawn remain. As Muzan limps away, Tanjiro struggles to rise. Inosuke suddenly leaps in, launching beast breathing, fourth fang, slice and dice, swearing vengeance for fallen comrades. Muzan retaliates, catching him with an underground whip. Tanjiro, unable to move, watches helplessly. Zenitsu appears, cutting the whip and saving Inosuke. He tells Tanjiro to stay alive for Nezuko, for their home, for everything. Muzan slams Zenitsu into a wall, but Inosuke counters again. Realizing something is disrupting his nervous system, Tanjiro stabs himself with his red blade to reset his body. Meanwhile, Muzan, hunched and trembling, finds he can't lift his arms. As he falters, Giyu Tomioka and Gyomei Himejima re-enter the battlefield, ready to finish the fight. As dawn approaches, everyone prays for those still standing against Muzan Kibutsuji. Inosuke and Zenitsu continue their desperate assault. Inosuke uses beast breathing, fourth fang, slice and dice to sever some of Muzan's whips, and Zenitsu follows with thunderclap and flash, Godspeed. Knowing he has one final burst left, Zenitsu unleashes his seventh form, Honoikazuchi no Kami, but it only causes a shallow cut. Realizing he needs a bright red blade to do real damage, Zenitsu collapses, vulnerable to Muzan's attack, only to be saved by Inosuke's fifth fang, crazy cutting, and third fang, devour. Enraged, Muzan fires off a torso shockwave, blasting Inosuke away. Just as Muzan prepares for another strike, Tanjiro steps in, executing a fierce combo: Burning Bones, Summer Sun, Raging Sun, Fire Wheel, Beneficent Radiance, and Sun Halo Dragonhead Dance. Tanjiro notes Muzan's shockwaves require charging and tries to exploit it with Solar Heat Haze, but collapses mid-attack. Inosuke rescues him again with Sixth Fang, Palisade Bite, giving Tanjiro room to unleash Dance, Clear Blue Sky, and Fake Rainbow. Zenitsu remembers his master Kuwajima and pushes forward, attacking again with Thunderclap and Flash, frustrated at his fading speed. Together, Tanjiro and Inosuke continue striking Muzan, while Zenitsu selflessly takes a blow meant for Tanjiro. Using that moment, Tanjiro lands Sun Halo Dragon Head Dance, Raging Sun, and finally pins Muzan with Sunflower Thrust. But Muzan's chest mouth tries to consume his blade. Suddenly, Mitsuri Kanroji charges in, ripping off Muzan's left arm, losing her own in the process. Sanemi follows up by severing Muzan's right arm with wind-breathing 8th form, Primary Gale Slash. Cornered and desperate, Muzan splits his body wide open to devour Tanjiro. At the last second, Obanai Iguro leaps in and takes the fatal blow to protect him, just as the first rays of dawn begin to shine. As the sun rises, Muzan Kibutsuji recoils in horror. In desperation, he unleashes a violent shockwave, hurling Obanai and Sanemi away. Tanjiro, despite losing his left arm, refuses to let go. He struggles to ignite his blade into a bright red but fails, until Giyu Tomioka arrives and grabs the sword too. Their combined grip turns the blade red-hot, scorching Muzan and causing him to cough blood. With sunlight intensifying, Muzan transforms grotesquely, forming a giant fleshy baby hoping to shield himself. As the mass grows, it swallows Tanjiro along with his blade. Tanjiro heroically headbutts Giyu out of harm's way before vanishing into Muzan's flesh. Panicking, Muzan tries to escape into the shade. But the Demon Slayer Corps, under Kiriya Ubuyashiki's command, throws bookcases, cars, and trams to block him. Some Kakushi even ram cars into Muzan, shouting for his death. Sanemi slices Muzan's hand with wind-breathing, 9th form, Idaten Typhoon, though it's not deep enough. Then Gyomei wraps his chain around Muzan's neck, with Kakushi pulling to drag the demon into the sunlight. It works briefly and Kiriya and his siblings pray for final victory. Yet Muzan refuses to die. He begins digging underground, trying to escape the sun's deadly rays. Giyu, Sanemi, and Obanai join in with their final attacks. Water-breathing, 10th form, Constant Flux, Wind-breathing, 5th form, Cold Mountain Wind, and Serpent-breathing, 4th form, Twin-headed Reptile. All barely pierce Muzan's body. Gyomei's chain snaps, and it seems Muzan might survive. Suddenly, Tanjiro, swallowed inside the demon, finds his resolve. Clutching his sword tighter, he slashes from within. Muzan roars in agony and rears up into full sunlight, finally burning alive. His body begins to disintegrate, ending centuries of terror. As he crumbles, a glimpse of Tamayo's vengeful spirit fades as well, her final justice served. With the first rays of sunlight, Muzan Kibutsuji disintegrates, ending the centuries-long terror. Exhausted tears fill the survivor's eyes. Kiriya Ubuyashiki orders the wounded tended and then collapses. Gyomei Himejima, refusing aid, instructs that younger fighters receive care first. He begins to see the children he once cared for in the temple, apologizing and explaining their actions during Kaigaku's attack. Touched, Gyomei forgives them and, filled with peace, quietly passes away. His final duty fulfilled. On the rubble, Mitsuri Kanroji fades in Obanai's arms. She asks if they've won, fearful she's close to death. Obanai admits he too may soon follow, but they won't die alone. He reminds her of how she'd helped him on that first meeting, not the other way around. He praises her warmth and kindness, and she tearfully says meals never tasted as good as when they shared them. Softly she asks, "If we're reborn, can I be your bride?" Obanai meets her eyes and answers, "Yes, I'll make you happy and protect you." Elsewhere, Sanemi Shinazugawa drifts into a vision of Genya and his siblings playing in light. He reaches for their absent mother, Shizu, who believes she doesn't belong. He promises to stay with her until his father appears, pulling him gently back, affirming, "You're not ready yet." Sanemi wakes and Kakushi cheer his return. Inosuke awakens next, groggy and bloodied, instinctively biting a helper. Zenitsu murmurs to Kakushi, "Tell Nezuko I loved her. I was brave. She's my wife," prompting gentle teasing from others. Giyu Tomioka finds Tanjiro kneeling, gravely injured and clinging to his blade. A Kakushi sobs as they confirm he's no longer breathing. Giyu weeps, grasping Tanjiro's hand and apologizing deeply for failing to protect him and to Nezuko. At that moment, Nezuko arrives, tears streaming. Giyu doesn't realize she's there until she rushes forward. In that silent, heart-wrenching moment, hope and sorrow collide in what remains of the battlefield. Muzan reflects on how, even before birth, death followed him. His heart had stopped in his mother's womb. Though stillborn, he miraculously began to breathe at his cremation. That moment marked his belief that he had finally achieved his purpose, cheating death. He recalls Kagaya Ubuyashiki telling him that feelings, unlike life, were eternal. Muzan admits he doesn't remember those he killed, but their feelings endured and ultimately overcame him. Facing this truth, he accepts his fate. With tears in his eyes, he believes emotions can indeed conquer mortality. Turning to Tanjiro, Muzan offers his last act, his own blood. He urges Tanjiro, Nezuko's brother, carrier of Yorichi's legacy, to survive and become the strongest demon ever. As Muzan disintegrates, he commands Tanjiro to annihilate the Demonslayer core in his stead. But Tanjiro doesn't die. Gasping back to life, he regenerates his lost left arm, his eyes glowing and features distorting into fangs and claws. A Demonslayer mark blooms across his face, stretching upward and downward like Kokushibo's. Giyu, stunned, pushes terrified Kakushi to safety. Tanjiro lunges at them only to halt when sunlight strikes him. He burns and howls, ripping his mask. Giyu lunges in, urging everyone to flee and don't let Tanjiro hurt anyone. He's become a demon. Tanjiro tries to find shade, but Giyu slashes him in the side, pinning him down. Giyu thinks, without the sun's interruption, Tanjiro would have killed a Kakushi. He prays silently, "Please still be human. Please die as a human." Tanjiro breaks free and swipes at Giyu. Inosuke, appearing suddenly, blocks the attack. Giyu falters, weak from blood loss, as Inosuke tries to appeal to Tanjiro. Then Zenitsu arrives, tearful and exhausted, urging Tanjiro to remember Nezuko. Tanjiro pounces on Inosuke, but he hesitates. Visions of their bond flash through his mind. He stabs, then stops just short of Tanjiro's throat, unable to strike, a shattered but loyal friend. Tomioka, Inosuke, and Zenitsu are in shock as Nezuko runs towards Tanjiro. She hugs him through his fangs and claws even as he wounds her. Bleeding and crying, she begs her brother to resist the demon inside him. "Come home with me," she pleads, clutching him tighter. But Tanjiro only howls louder, his monstrous instincts trying to override the memories of his humanity. Zenitsu and Inosuke rush in. Zenitsu tries to restrain Tanjiro, begging him to stop hurting Nezuko, to remember she's human now. Inosuke strikes Tanjiro's head repeatedly, refusing to believe his friend could hurt his sister, shouting for him to wake up. But Tanjiro unleashes a terrifying shockwave, throwing all three away. As he releases Muzan like bone whips from his back, Giyu intercepts one of his attacks with water breathing, fourth form, saving Zenitsu. Giyu fears the worst. Tanjiro has tasted blood and is too powerful now. Sunlight and red blades are useless against him. The only option left is to kill him. But just as Tanjiro charges a massive energy blast in his mouth, Nezuko once again steps in, placing her hand in front of his mouth to redirect the blast. The ground explodes, her arm bloodied, but Tanjiro doesn't kill her. Slowly, Giyu realizes Tanjiro is still resisting. Then, Kanao Tsuyuri appears, limping but determined. She recalls her final conversation with Shinobu, who had entrusted her with an extra vial of Tamayo's medicine, one that could turn a demon back into a human. Kanao activates flower-breathing final form, equinoctial vermilion eye, dodging Tanjiro's strike and flipping over him to inject the cure. But Tanjiro reacts, slashing her across the torso. Bleeding, Kanao tells him softly, "That's enough. You mustn't make Nezuko cry." She collapses, and with her words and Nezuko's unwavering love, something begins to stir inside Tanjiro. The medicine begins to take effect. As Nezuko Kamado tearfully reached for her brother, she begged him to come home. Deep in his subconscious, Tanjiro stirred, expressing how tired he was and how much he wanted to return to Nezuko. He prayed quietly, wishing only to go home together. Just as he reached forward, monstrous eyes opened on the flesh binding him. Muzan Kibutsuji's voice echoed in his mind, trying to stop him. He told Tanjiro there was nothing left. His family was gone. But Tanjiro remembered the joy they had shared and insisted that as long as he and Nezuko lived, those memories lived too. Muzan lied, claiming Nezuko was already dead, but Tanjiro didn't believe him. As if in response, the spirits of his fallen comrades appeared. Muichiro, Shinobu, Rengoku, helping push him upward. Muzan, desperate, said they all hated him for what he had become. But Tanjiro knew he owed them an apology, and only they could choose whether to forgive him, not Muzan. Muzan kept pressuring him to embrace life as an immortal demon, reminding him that with the Demonslayer mark, he wouldn't live long anyway. Tanjiro, however, had never wanted eternity. He only wanted to return to his friends as a human. Muzan's final argument was that living on after everyone else had died would be too painful. As Tanjiro struggled with the thought, he suddenly smelled wisteria. Then he saw Nezuko, her arms reaching through the light. He reached back, but Muzan grabbed his torso, demanding that he stay and inherit his will. He claimed the dead resented Tanjiro for surviving, but Tanjiro refuted him, believing that those who had died had done so for others, not out of hate. As Muzan pulled him down, more hands reached up. Giyu, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Nezuko herself. Together they pulled him away from Muzan's grasp. Tanjiro opened his eyes in the real world to see Nezuko looking down at him, crying. Surrounded by friends and Kakushi, he apologized for the pain he caused. Relief and joy swept through them all. Inosuke sobbed and said he wasn't seriously hurt. Zenitsu cried louder, claiming Tanjiro owed him for life, and shockingly declared Nezuko his wife, leaving her stunned. Giyu sighed deeply, finally at ease. Nezuko hugged her brother tightly, both smiling through tears. A Kakushi rushed to tell Kanao the good news. She woke, smiled at Tanjiro, and he felt thankful she'd survived. Inosuke grabbed his friend's head, sobbing uncontrollably, and quietly Yushiro pulled out Tamayo's hairpin and cried, knowing with certainty it was finally over. 3 months after the final battle with Muzan Kibutsuji, peace returns to the world. At the Butterfly Mansion, Tanjiro Kamado is recovering. Sitting under the cherry blossoms, he's joined by Nezuko, with Inosuke and Zenitsu sleeping nearby. Nezuko notices his withered left arm, and Tanjiro says he can't feel or use it anymore. He also mentions that while his right eye looks fine, it's completely blind. Tanjiro apologizes for hurting Nezuko while he was a demon, but she waves it off, happy he's human again. She jokes she'll flick his forehead if he apologizes again. He shares what Yushiro told him, that it was a miracle he returned to normal thanks to Shinobu's medicine and Nezuko's immunity. Yushiro had even said Tanjiro was stronger than Muzan for a time. Tanjiro was modest, but Yushiro brushed it off with a joke and left, carrying Chachamaru. Tanjiro asked Yushiro to stay alive to honor Tamayo's memory, but hasn't seen him since. Nezuko tells him Giyu is with Kiriya Ubuyashiki, who then calls the final Hashira meeting. Only Giyu and Sanemi attend. Kiriya announces that the Demonslayer Corps is officially disbanded. Though the Hashira insist the Ubuyashikis deserve the praise, the family humbly thanks them for centuries of sacrifice. Later, Tengen Uzui visits with his wives. Suma smothers Nezuko with affection while Makio hits her for being too loud. Hinasuru gives Tanjiro a snack, and Tengen invites him to visit when he's better. Then the Rengokus, Senjuro and Shinjuro, arrive. Shinjuro thanks Tanjiro for using Kyojuro's handguard. Tanjiro replies that Kyojuro's spirit guided him throughout. Zenitsu wakes up in horror at the crowd of swordsmiths and Kakushi coming to see Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Inosuke sneaks food from the kitchen, but gets caught by Aoi Kanzaki, who gives him a plate instead of scolding him. Outside, Kanao's Suyuri visits the Victory Cherry Tree to report their win over Muzan. Tanjiro joins her. She says her injuries are healing and that Sanemi gave her Kaburamaru, Obanai's snake. Sanemi meets Nezuko and apologizes for being unconscious after the final fight. She shrugs it off, joking she once slept for 2 years. He's reminded of Genya, who used to say sleeping kept hunger away. He gently pats Nezuko's head as Zenitsu jealously watches from around the corner. Tanjiro and Nezuko later reunite with Giyu and Urokodaki, then visit the graves of the fallen. Afterward, they travel to the Kamado family home, stopping to pay respects along the way. Zenitsu carries his grandfather's remains, confusing Inosuke, who asks if they're edible. They meet Saburo, a familiar face from the mountain, and finally return home to find flowers blooming at their doorstep. They pray in front of the graves and begin life anew, free from demons. As time passes, the world transforms into a modern city, closing the curtain on a historic chapter of bravery and sacrifice.